Hi, and welcome to the Leader's Edge, how to sharpen your competitive advantage and make a positive impact as a leader in your organization and community. I'm Emily Chiva, and with me is Georgia Donaldson. We are leadership coaches and hosts of this show, and today we are speaking with Kamla Rampersad De Silva on governance and leadership. Kamla is a qualified attorney at law, a lecturer in corporate governance and other topics at various universities. She is a mother of three and the CEO of the Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute. Kamla is clearly passionate about governance and what this can do for our institutions and companies. And we can't wait, Kamla, to hear from you on this topic. Before we bring her on, Georgia, as usual, we want you, the listeners, to throw your mind on what you think when you hear governance. So, Georgia, you have a couple of questions for our listeners?
Yes. Good morning, Emily. Good morning, Kamla. Bright and early on a Monday, we're here. And, listeners, when you hear about corporate governance, we want you to throw your mind back. Think about corporate governance maybe in your own setting. Where have you seen it working well? Or where have you seen nightmares and you're saying, isn't there anyone responsible for corporate governance? So we know that Kamla has seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. And, listeners, when you think about corporate governance, have you thought about any action that you can take in your own organization to further corporate governance? So, Kamla, we know that corporate governance has been your life for a few years now. Talk to me. If I'm a new CEO coming on into an organization, what would you say to me about corporate governance? What is it, and what would be my role as that CEO?
Okay, thank you very much, Georgia, and good morning to you and Emily. And let me congratulate you guys on your live stream and the wonderful work that you're doing. And it is an absolute honor and privilege to be here, part of your team as well. So, and as you say, I love corporate governance, and I'm so happy to be able to share what knowledge and skills that I have. And as you say, so a new CEO who is entering an organization and wanting to help be effective, the governance is your relationship with the board, how the board performs its functions, and those functions include supervision of that CEO, the management team, as well as helping in strategic direction and making policies. And it is the board actually that is accountable for what goes on in the organization. One will normally think it's the CEO. Well, the CEO absolutely is, but the CEO is generally accountable to the board first. If governance is working well, it means that your board knows and understands what's going on in the organization, is properly giving you direction for the strategies to be executed well in that organization. And um, and the relationship between both the CEO and that board should be
Mm-hmm.
working well.
Oh, okay, good. So my role as that CEO, I must make sure that I have that relationship with the board so they
That's right, because you
understand
are
their role
responsible
and
for
I
management.
understand. Yes, yes, okay, yes,
Yeah,
because we've
Kamla.
seen and heard, before where boards are acting like management.
That's right. So
Yes.
it's a challenge when persons don't understand what their role and function is. It's
Mm-hmm.
a common challenge. Very often, even the CEOs don't understand. And so when the board steps into management, which they ought
Mm-hmm.
not to do, then
Yes.
even the CEO does not know whether what is happening is right or wrong and how to then deal with it. So,
Yes.
and because, see, governance is such a kind of nebulous concept for persons,
Mm-hmm.
helping them to really understand what it is they should be aspiring to,
Right.
really requires us to encourage persons to take time to engage in continuous learning. Read as much
Mm-hmm.
as you can, because today there is so much information about corporate
Yes.
governance and the
Yes.
role of the board.
Yes.
So when you have directors who are appointed and they don't fully understand what the role and function of the board is, the resources that are so easily available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And at
Mm-hmm.
CGGI, we encourage both the board and senior management team to be trained, because a critical thing that the organizations require is that excellent working relationship between the board
Right.
and management. And so
Right.
that CEO needs to be able to guide the board as well, because decision making comes through the CEO. And
Okay.
if the
Right.
CEO knows and understands the role of the board effectively, then that CEO will be able to provide the right kind of information in the context that the board
Mm-hmm.
needs it to be able to perform their own functions.
Yes. Okay. Good. Emily, I know I see the wheels turning in your head because you're on boards. So let's bring you in here.
Yes, yes, Kamla. So this is so interesting, Kamla. So in terms of you're saying the board's role, and you're talking about you also said governance is nebulous. You talked about being the supervisor of the CEO and the management and acting as that role between, I suppose, the shareholders,
Mhm.
because the board
Mhm.
is acting to ensure that that
The
things are done
organization is
well,
run well. That's right.
run
Mhm.
well in the
That's
company.
primarily the function of the board, to
Yes,
Yes.
ensure that the organization is run well and running in the right direction.
Mhm.
That's from Bob Tricker, by the way.
yes.
So this is
Okay.
all
Okay.
based on good research.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you say run well and going in the right direction, I suppose, are there any tips now from leaders who are either on boards or leaders who are in senior roles interacting with boards to say what are what are some of the things that need you all to do? Because you talk about the relationship. I mean, from a board perspective, you get a board package. Sometimes your relationship seems like, very limited in terms of
Mhm.
how much information you get. So, in terms of transparency and making sure that things are done right and people know I
Yes.
mean, we've seen so many fiascos right here in Trinidad where people say they weren't aware they did not have the correct information, so they were acting on not, incorrect
Right.
material or less than all of the facts.
Right. Yes. And you see that for that reason, you need persons who are placed on boards to be persons of a certain level, skill and experience and competence.
Mhm.
That's why you just can't put any and anyone, because
Mhm.
you now have to be able to discern from information which comes to you whether
Yes.
or not it is the complete picture of what's happening in the organization. And what you are also raising there is the absolute importance for boards to ensure they take time to understand their organization well. They need to
Mhm.
both understand the organization and its operations so they can know if there may be gaps. They know what type of risks face that organization, but they
Mhm.
also need to understand the environment outside of the organization.
Right.
They need to have that very wide perspective so that they can guide that organization, and that is why directors have that very onerous duty.
Mhm.
It's not just about accepting the appointment and feeling happy that it brings a certain level of status to you as an individual. It is because you are expected to know and
Mhm.
understand a lot of what is happening, so you bring value to
Right.
your position as a
Right.
director in the board.
Okay. Good.
And
Maybe
if
let
I may take, sorry
yeah.
about that, Georgia.
Go
Yeah,
right
if I
ahead.
may just take this opportunity with you guys to raise one of my passions about
Mhm.
the absolute need for us to understand what governance is, and then how the board plays a key role in how that organization moves forward and builds sustainability in particular.
Mhm.
A lot of you would be hearing about ESG today. That is
Oh,
environment,
good.
social, and governance. Well, this is because we are all feeling the effects of today's world where there has not been the kind of regard for the environment as there should be by businesses.
Mhm.
So a lot of the consumption that we do today has created major challenges for us, and one of the impact is global warming. So when we go outside, the heat is so almost unbearable at times.
Mhm.
And I was sharing with Emily earlier, over the next few months, we in the Caribbean are going to be facing the heat even more than we
Mhm.
currently are facing it. And so we can take some of the precautions that persons are advising, that, make sure you are properly hydrated and all that. But really, what
Mhm.
we need to do is tackle the core issue. And the core issue is the way organizations do business. The
Right.
core issue is, how do we move from this linear economy where our consumerism is so high, where we are
Mm-hmm.
dumping a lot of stuff in the landfills, where we are using a lot of plastics and a lot of metals, which, it's burdening the environment.
Mm-hmm.
It is possible. There's a lot of research. Many companies are doing it. So directors of organizations need to understand, what can we do to help in turning around the wheels that's currently impacting us so adversely. And
Mm-hmm.
what we want to create is a circular economy type model, where you look at how the organization is working. How do we change out our operations so that it is more in alignment with being able to use our natural resources over and over and over again in
Mm-hmm.
different forms, so that we extend the life and use of things. So let us take, for instance, we are familiar with the fact that elevators are not easily disposed. When you build an elevator in a building, it is meant to last decades. And
Mm-hmm.
so what follows after the manufacturer has established that elevator is a follow-up service, where you ensure it is maintained well and it is able to effectively serve its purpose for decades into the future. Now think about your washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
I recall, in my parents' time, you buy one washing machine and that's it. It's there into the next generation. Today,
Yes.
that's not the case. 4 or 5 years, and it begins to go bad, and you can't find
Mm-hmm.
persons who are able to repair it, or the cost of repairs is more than the cost of purchasing a new one.
A new
And
one.
so
Mm-hmm.
you get a lot more persons disposing of these things. And I'm using washing machine in particular because it's a huge item. So when you
Mm-hmm.
think of that disposal and the impact it's having on the environment, now think if the manufacturers who are making items like washing machines, instead of making it to be disposed of in 5 years, follow the same system like the manufacturer who is making the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
So they make a washing machine that's going to last 2 and 3 generations. And in order they continue to be profitable, they provide an after service to ensure that each time the part goes bad, you are able to come in and fix it. Or one of the popular things that's shared in the circular economy concept now is things like leasing. The way you lease a vehicle, you don't
Mm-hmm.
purchase the vehicle anymore and then have to dispose of it afterwards. It goes back to in this case, generally it is the
The leasing company.
business that is rented
Yes.
the cars, but
Mm-hmm.
it can again go up the chain back to the manufacturer.
Manufacturer.
You
Mm-hmm.
see, yes, it can be
So,
in a constant flow of use, and that
so
Mm-hmm.
requires everyone to be on board.
exactly, that's what I was going to say, Kamla. So, I mean, this requires like a whole rejigging of our mindsets
That's right.
because part of it, I mean, like if you go back to the washing machine example, part of it is that companies may have gone to this cycle of shortening the lifespan of certain things because they want
Which
to
they did.
increase profits and
Profit.
sales,
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
and shareholders want return on their
Yep.
money, right?
Yes.
On their investment. So as you said, is rejigging the business models to see how they can still be profitable to satisfy the needs of the shareholders and also the needs of the environment. And then you're also saying that in the leasing concept too, it's like that whole idea of, I don't know, that old time idea in most of our minds is that you must own things, right? You
Yeah.
own your home,
Yes.
you own your car, instead of
Yes.
having a loan or a lease, which is like constantly having to pay. So I guess it requires some shifts in thinking and then
Yes.
even of the chain, because I mean I'm thinking we're an island. So when we import these vehicles, they stay on the island. It's very
Mm-hmm.
not simple to get it back to wherever the manufacturer may be. So there's so many implications in the circular economy. But you know what? Also, there are so many brilliant minds in the world,
That's right.
and
There are
Yes.
lots of people who have
and I guess
already
the
worked
point,
out the
yeah, the point I'm
logistics of it.
making from a governance standpoint now is that maybe the leadership from boards is really to push towards this, because the emergency, the climate thing is no longer just a, a
Mm-hmm.
sounding horn or something to speak about. I think it's something that is being felt
Mhm.
across the
Yes.
globe. And whether we have still deniers or not, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
there are real issues for
Mm-hmm.
people to,
Yes.
to think about. And you're thinking that the board level needs to be the level that maybe pushes this agenda some more, so that
Yes,
the
because
CEOs and the
absolutely, yes,
companies can
it is
think
the
about it.
board that has that responsibility for setting the direction of the organization. It is the board that has to ensure that the organization is sustainable,
Right.
2 and 3 generations as well. So you don't want to look at the short-term profits only.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's important that economically your model is sound, and that's why you want persons of a certain level competence on the board. You want persons who want to take time doing the additional research so that they could
Right.
bring that value to the organization as well. But
Mm-hmm.
and one more thing I want to share in that respect to Emily, all directors really should take as much time as they can to read widely. There, there's so much information on YouTube as well too that would help them to build their knowledge and competence, because we require them to demonstrate a level of leadership that
Yeah.
is unprecedented. And in
Mm-hmm.
today's world, the kind of leadership that is required to bring the changes that we need,
Mm-hmm.
really, it can't be done with the same mindset that we would have had a decade ago or 2 decades ago. And
Right.
one of
That's
the
an
things
important
that I
point.
also thought it's important for us to understand in the region, because we are small nations, generally persons look at it from the perspective of, we didn't cause this problem. I've heard this argued many times. We did not
Okay.
cause this problem, and therefore the solution needs to be coming from the developed countries, which are the ones that have been more responsible for a lot of the waste and the consumerism. Okay, that may be fine. Remember, we can't necessarily change history,
Mm-hmm.
but we can change the way things are happening around us right now. And
Yeah.
so, as much as there's a responsibility on the part of these countries to do what is necessary to help turn the tide as well, each of us are
Mm-hmm.
links in that chain. And
Right.
so, within the Caribbean region, it is important that we too look at our business models, that
Mm-hmm.
we too look at the way we think about how we interact with the environment. And the truth is, generally, when you get that level of thinking, it also includes, and what about the people? How are we treating the employees in the organization?
Mm-hmm.
What is that relationship dynamics between the board and the management team? How do you get both parties to work well together?
Right.
Because the only way the organization will be able to function at its best is if management is getting that proper guidance, if there is the monitoring and supervision that
Okay.
is supposed
Mm-hmm.
to come from the top. Okay,
Mhm.
and then the directors on the organizations being able to bring their level of experience to help guide the CEO as well, so
Mm-hmm.
that the organization can benefit from the multitude of
Mm-hmm.
perspectives as opposed to the one individual.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So,
Kamla,
one,
really given us a lot of food for thought. And it comes down to quite a bit of cultural shift and mindset
Yeah.
shift.
Mhm.
What are some
yeah.
of the things that are impacting us both internally and externally in the organization? And you spoke about ESG. 10 years ago, we weren't hearing that conversation about ESG. So you really gave us food for thought. And Emily, we're thinking those persons who are listening and watching, today or on the rerun, what are you seeing in your organization? What is a cultural shift that needs to happen in your organization for corporate governance to have an impact, a positive impact on the organization? And so we're throwing that question out for you this week to think about it. Because Emily, we usually like to leave them with something to think about. Yeah?
Yes,
So
yes.
over
I
to you,
think,
Emily,
I think,
to wrap.
yes, thank you, Georgia, and thank you, Kamla. I mean, we always have these short conversations, but they're always very punchy. They always
Yes.
provide some really interesting points of, for us to think about and to act on. And I like to, yeah, as we say, as we have said in this show, we like to leave you with something to act on. So Georgia has talked about culture in terms of how you think about governance in your culture. And I want you to also, I mean, if you are sitting in board positions or in senior leadership positions, so think about the relationship that you have with your board. Is
Yes.
it one of respect? Is it one of trust? Is it one of and even from a board perspective, sometimes are we forward thinking enough? Are we pushing, are we allowing ourselves to go beyond and really um, maybe challenge what we're seeing and for good, not
Yes.
challenge just because we want to challenge, but challenge because we want to see positive forward improvement and movement. So I would leave you guys with those ideas. And Kamla, again, thank you for the time. It's been so wonderful having you on.
Thank
These
you for
topics
having me.
are so important. You are
Yes.
welcome. Yeah, people, we've seen where governance issues has blown up in our country, and we can see therefore the role and the importance of it. And I hope we really just take that home and take it seriously. Yeah. So have a
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful week, everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Take care.
See you
Good to see
next
you,
time.
Kamla.
Yes.
Yes, thanks. Bye,
Bye
Okay.
everyone.
bye.
Bye.